When I was 14, I was R by a close family friend. I got pregnant but gave the baby up for adoption when I was 15. I knew the child was adopted by distant family members who lived a state away, but I did not know their names or what they were like. We received a sum of $2,500 when they took her from the hospital. I do not remember signing anything. I do not know what happened to the friend. I asked to be kept out of the process as much as possible. My mother said he was jailed, but I don't know if he's still in jail, how long he was in jail, or even if he went to jail. I have 2 other children, ages 10 and 7, and am now married. My husband knows about my daughter, but has deferred to me on how we should handle the situation. A month ago, I received a Facebook message from a woman who says she is my daughter. I believe she is because her appearance, and that she has the same genetic condition as my R. She told me that she wanted to get to know me. I spent hours going through her Facebook page trying to decide what to do. I found myself disgusted by her. There are a lot of similarities between her and my R, as she is rude, vulgar, whiny, and smokes illicit substances. She is married, but has a publicly strained relationship with her husband, and refers to him by cruel nicknames. I decided that I would not be comfortable meeting her. I blocked her without responding. After a week, I began to receive letters from her, 4 letters in total. I did not read those either, but recently received a phone call 3 days ago. I finally answered. I told her that I was not interested in getting to know her and that she should leave me and my family alone, or I would get the police involved. She began to berate me. She told me that my family was her family. She accused me of not going through proper adoption procedures and that I had maliciously sold her to an A couple as punishment for being born, and that I had held back important information. Without medical records, she lived life as a very sick child and was deeply in debt from the genetic testing necessary to diagnose her illness. She told me that she would be making contact with my family whether I liked it or not. She also said she would subpoena me for my father's name if I did not comply, and that I could possibly be jailed for selling a baby. When I began to cry, she offered me an alternative. Her genetic condition makes getting pregnant more difficult. If I agreed to pay for a round of IVF, she would consider us even and would only try to make contact with her father. Here are my questions. Does she have a legal right to make contact with my family if I tell her to stay away? Could she force me to disclose information about her birth father? My parents are dead, and I do not know how to find out information about the adoption. I did not sign any papers and didn't really speak to lawyers outside of the court case. I am worried it is possible my parents merely handed over in exchange for the money. Could I be arrested for selling her as a teenager? I have money in my savings account and could afford the amount she is asking for. Could I form a contract that would legally force her to leave my family alone if I agreed to pay? One point that has not been mentioned is that you were a minor at the time of her birth. You did not sell her. If your parents did, that's not on you. If the adoptive parents gave your parents money to help with your medical bills, that's legal and not selling a baby. Block this person. She can contact whoever she wants. They can also block her. Do not under any circumstances give this person money. Keep copies of her messages to you. Edit to say, she cannot force you to disclose anything outside of a court action. Even then, I have a hard time imagining the context in which she would be able to bring anything against you at all. She will not be successful if she tries to sue you because her adoptive parents were A. Me, 30 female, Mary, have been married to my husband, Jim, 33 male, for 4 years now. We met through a mutual friend and instantly clicked. We've always been open and honest, and as far as I know, we've never had any major issues. We would argue every once in a while, but the most part, we've been happy. Beginning 2020, pre-COVID, he met Haley, 28 female, 2 years ago. At first, I didn't have any issue with them being friends, as she's just a work friend. He talked to her every once in a while and would let me know. I never asked, he would tell. Plus, she's lesbian. I guess over the pandemic, they grew closer due to the work environment limiting the amount of workers due to COVID. A lot of people would work in teams. You stick with that team for safety reasons. Pre-COVID, it was group setting, everyone communicated, interacted. Their team consisted of them plus 2 others, 4 total. I never asked how they got paired. I assumed it was random and they got lucky. Their friendship has blossomed, to the point where they've started to hang out outside of work and talk on a more regular basis. Again, didn't bother me. I've seen their text is a bit flirty, but nothing crazy. She asks him about girls and let him know about girls she's talking to, which I thought was weird, but then again, she's lesbian, probably wanted girl advice. Haley later on got a girlfriend using his advice. Fall 2021. Fast forward to present day. They are now nearly inseparable. She calls him her best friend and he calls her a good friend. Constant communication. He tells her everything and vice versa. It's gotten to the point where I'm starting to become uncomfortable with how close they are. I've met Haley a couple of times. She's never been rude to me or anything in the past. She is now married, and I don't think her wife sees an issue with their closeness. But then again, I've hardly interacted with them, so I'm not the best judge of that. Haley had a family barbecue which included me, my husband, Haley, and her wife, plus a couple of their coworkers, and I asked if I can invite some girls, since I didn't really know his coworkers like that. I've always known they were close, but actually seen it in action. During the barbecue, I guess my husband mentioned that we're thinking of starting a family and might start soon. For the rest of the night, noticed that she hadn't really said anything to me, but brushed it off thinking she's busy hosting. One of my friends, Sarah, let me know that when she went inside to get a drink and noticed Haley sitting on his lap rubbing his hair. So she went to one of the coworkers, I guess, to get some intel. He didn't know who she was, so he kind of told her everything. Plus, it didn't seem like she was much of hers anyways. But according to him, she's been like this with him throughout the whole barbecue. She got a bit drunk and heavily started being touchy with him, any given opportunity she would get. Then I realized I hadn't really talked with him since we've arrived, and that he's been with his coworkers the whole night. I overheard one of the coworkers make a joke towards them. "You're lucky she's gay, because my wife would have killed me if she saw me doing this." They all seemed to laugh it off. I didn't want to seem like a jealous wife, so I brushed it off, telling myself she's lesbian, married, and she's not interested. It's my head. I noticed that ever since the barbecue, it's almost like she's actively avoiding me, and when I asked him about it, he said he hadn't noticed a change in her behavior. So I asked him to invite Haley and wife over, since I wanted to know the other spouse better, like couple friends. He didn't seem to have an issue with it. When she came, I noticed that she was acting weird, like she's almost competing with me. For example, when it came time to eat, I told my husband I would make his plate for him, like I always do, and she beat me to the punch. So I gave the plate I made to her wife. As I'm walking to the table to sit next to my husband, she almost beelined to get to the seat. Her wife gave me the "you see it too" look. Anyways, dinner was fine until the topic of kids came up. She asked me if I was pregnant, to which I replied no, but we have discussed wanting to start a family soon. Which she replied, "I know, we've talked to me about starting soon." I thought she meant her and her wife, Casey, if they wanted to adopt. To which Casey said she wanted to, but Haley wanted to carry. Haley mentioned how they looked into donors, but was skeptical due to lack of knowledge regarding medical history. I guess they had a drunken conversation at the barbecue regarding kids. She jokingly said he would be the perfect donor due to their friendship, and he could play the uncle role. Kinda play a father role as a fun uncle. Anyways, at dinner, she mentioned how he offered to be their donors. After that, it kind of got awkward, so Casey changed the subject. Dinner ended early due to Haley not feeling well. "Sorry, but it sounds like she might already be pregnant by your husband. Or soon. Everything you wrote about sounds like extremely disrespectful behavior to your marriage, by both Haley and your husband. So you seem to think you shouldn't be upset because she is gay. The thing is, S-preference has nothing to do with boundary stomping and inappropriate behavior. Stop trying to be the cool wife. Time to sit your husband down and finally tell him the truth. What she is doing is weird, and also out of bounds. It doesn't matter that she is a lesbian. Her motives don't have to be S for them to still be inappropriate. Also, if your husband respects you and your marriage at all, he will take a step back from this friendship and reevaluate it once you talk to him. Yes, it's healthy to have friends. I can tell you though, as a person who does in fact have an opposite gender best friend, there are limits." My mother-in-law is still hung up to Elise as her daughter-in-law. For some information, there was no cheating or anything. My husband divorced her because she decided she didn't want to work anymore after her maternity leave, and my husband had to provide for all of them. He didn't like it, and it ended their marriage. Elise is the one paying child support though, because my husband and I have the twins more than her. My mother-in-law's always asking me to include her as the mother of her grandchildren, as my husband's first love, and that she's alone in this city, that all she does is work, but both my husband and I refuse. Recently, my husband just got a big promotion and is finally landing in the position of his dreams. I was so happy and proud of him, so I decided to host a small party with family, mother-in-law, brother-in-law, and his family, the lovely twins, and some cousins, as well as friends. I did warn mother-in-law that Elise was not invited, and that if she dared to show up, I wasn't going to open the door. Well, my mother-in-law had the audacity to show up with her as +1, since father-in-law is not here anymore. I said this wasn't a wedding, so there aren't +1s, so I turned to Elise and say she should leave. But my mother-in-law tried to walk past me and said, "Nonsense, we are already here, move, girl." But I said no, and I stood my ground. My mother-in-law tried to play the "this was her house" card, but I just said it's mine now, and she's not allowed in. She said, if she's not allowed, then I won't come either. And I was like, "Okay," and closed the door. When going back to the kitchen, my husband asked who it was. I tell him it was his mother and Elise. My brother-in-law is like, "Did you close the door on my mother?" And I said, "Yes," again. He demands I open it, that I'm a nobody, that it's not my call. And I say that he's allowed to leave with her if he doesn't like it, and he does. My husband doesn't get mad, still enjoys the evening with the rest of the family and friends. But my mother-in-law and brother-in-law said I crossed a major line, and that this won't go unforgiven. Not the a-hole. Your husband backed you up. You gave mother-in-law fair warning, and she crossed the line. Not the a-hole. This wasn't an event for their kids. This was an event for your husband. The ex is not his wife anymore, and no longer has a place in his life, beyond what he allows. Only a role for their kid's life. The mother-in-law is way overstepping boundaries. The best person to set her straight is her son, which he had better step up and do. He needs to stand by you on this and present a united front to his relatives. You handled mother-in-law's disrespect very well. Brother-in-law also. My wife, Ellie, and I have been married for a year now. Back in the day, Ellie worked as a sports model. Her job required her to meet a very rigid beauty standard and look a certain way. She was always on a strict diet and was severely underweight. Since then, she's gained a healthy amount of weight and muscle and is much happier. My brother, Chris, is wealthy, like extremely wealthy. He's done well for himself and seems happy about where he is in life. He's just got out of a nasty divorce with his ex-wife and has asked to stay with me for a few weeks as he moves into his new place. Chris, to put it simply, has a type. He believes that every woman should subscribe to his type. Any woman who doesn't fit his preference is automatically ugly and unlovable. He wants all women to conform to his standards, hell or high water. 2 days ago, Chris found some of Ellie's old magazine covers and commented on how beautiful she was back then. It's a harmless comment, sure, but he kept bringing it up, how much she's let herself go. I mean, kept bringing it up. Ellie goes for a run every evening, and as she was heading out the door, Chris told her to run fast enough to lose all the flabby bits. She rolled her eyes and laughed it off, but I told him to shut up. The next day, when Ellie went to the gym, he told her to make sure to return to her old figure. Again, I told him to shut up and stop fixating on my wife's body. Despite all his comments, Ellie is a little unfazed by all of it. She says that she's used to it. By the end of the day, I was completely exhausted from listening to him. I was at my end, but Ellie, again, brushed him off with a smile and a laugh. When Ellie served him food, he made a joke about paying for her tummy tuck so that I can marry the right version of Ellie. The right version is the skinnier version of her. That comment set me off. I told him that his wife married the wrong version of him, and to pack his crap and leave my house. He did not take kindly to this, and complained about how insensitive I was to his situation, and how I made a low blow. He eventually left, but Ellie tells me that I could have kicked him out without the comment. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Okay, it was a low blow about his divorce, but given the revolting nature of his comments and the fact that he explicitly insulted your wife while you were putting a roof over his head, makes it understandable. You are only human. You were far more polite than I would have been. Your wife's responses are likely a coping mechanism for many years of prejudice and discrimination. You have a right and responsibility as a spouse to be upset and protect your wife from harm, to which you did. Your brother appears to have very little awareness of his own behaviors, which I imagine contributed to his divorce in the first place. He will either keep up this behavior until he has no relationships at all, or eventually fix himself. Either way, you are not obligated to be around that type of mess to find out.